Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us after this lunch. And a topic for today, success drivers of the retail sector in driving India towards a $5 trillion economy. Now, it was June 2019 when Prime Minister Narendra Modi, for the very first time, laid it out in front of the National Development Council that the Indian economy aims to hit US $5 trillion economy by 2025. But since then, a lot has happened around the world in terms of the turbulent 2022 in terms of inflation, given how the war has broken out in Ukraine and retail inflation staying above RBI's tolerance band for around 9 consecutive months. And of course, the COVID-19 pandemic that happened. But a word that has emerged for the Indian economy after all of this is resilience. Now, when we're talking about resilience, it's the various sectors of the Indian economy that has shown and has contributed towards that being the resilient, be it global brokerages. The India shining story is at the top at the moment. And that's what I would like my panelists to start with in their opening comments as to how much of the retail sector has shown that resilience, from that COVID slump and then, this inflationary 2022. Sir, if you would like to start first.
Thank you. Good afternoon, friends. Difficult to keep everybody awake, especially after lunch, but we'll try our best, I hope so. So if we see, when we talk about resilience, I guess retail is almost a synonym for the word resilience. And why I am saying this is not only because of the recent COVID chapter. If we see the last 2 decades, especially in the current century, we have seen these kind of downsides periodically after every few years. So in the early 2000s, there was a dot-com bust. Then in 2007, 2008, there was a recession. In the mid of 2014, all the new online companies started coming into India and they created a big disruption for physical retail because India till that time was predominantly a physical retail-driven country. Then after that, demonetization came. That also had a big impact on retail. Then GST, and then finally, one of the biggest disruptor for our lives in personal capacity as well as professional capacity was COVID. However, if you see, when I say retail and retailers are very, very resilient, after all these events or after all these disasters that happened in the country and especially to the retail sector, retailers were able to bounce back very quickly. They were able to adapt and they were able to evolve themselves. Taking an example of the very recent online and offline disruption, because that created a big disruption in entire retail industry at that time, and the talk was whether it will be online or offline. However, that talk is not there anymore. People don't talk about these 2 channels as 2 different channels. They say that these are 2 beautiful channels of distribution and they complement each other. Online guys are going offline. Offline guys have already got onto the online bandwagon also. After the COVID, we see the same resilience again with the retailers. Retailers have been able to understand that what is it that customers want. What are the offerings? What kind of channels of distribution that the customers are looking for? Given all these things, I think most retailers in the country that at least I interact with or we keep reading about that, they are very happy. There is nothing to complain about the sale, the customers coming back to the physical stores as well as online channels. The going is good. My personal belief is that after any of these type of disastrous events, there is a serious growth that comes, provided one is able to understand, one is able to adapt, one is able to evolve accordingly. And that is the growth that I see for the next 2 to 3 years, at least in the country. There can be only 1 or 2 stumbling blocks there. One is, if global recession hits, India is not living in a silo. India will also be impacted. In retail, human psychology plays an important role. So if you remember in January 2020, when COVID had not even entered India, it had started hitting India's retail. Similarly, in case of global recession, if anything happens in any part of the world, it will impact India, especially the retail sector. So that could be a stumbling block. And the second thing that we have recently heard of in the last 1 week only is the China's COVID problem, which is expanding now, at least in the 5 countries in the world. So if these two events are addressed and taken care of, there is no reason, in my view, why retail will not grow leaps and bounds from here. And that's my take on the resilience of retail sector and how they adopt, how they evolve themselves.
Right. Thank you so much, Rajesh ji, for those opening comments. Anuji, if you would like to build more on that, the resilience part and the 2 factors that Rajesh ji mentioned as to how the scenario could look like if these 2 things happen in 2023.
So from the resilient perspective, I think there's no doubt that retail will go up. If you look at any of the macro markets, look at history, look at all the predictions, we're doing approximately $800 billion from a retail, 850, and this is supposed to go to 1600 billion by 2030. Modi ji said कि हम 2025 में 5 trillion जाएंगे. Gadkari ji said कि अगले साल जाएंगे. But even if we grow at a 9-10% sort of a GDP, we should look at 2030 as a number. So which means by all prospects, the retail industry will grow. Which channel will grow? I think COVID gave us a different perspective. Majority still is general trade. Traditional industry does almost 80-81% of the overall 800 billion ka market. Modern trade does 12%. And online does 6%. We might see this changes happening. We have already seen in COVID, every brand has adapted itself from the need of going online. But as Sir said that there's no one channel. You know, it has to be an omni-channel play. How beautifully any brand interacts or makes the experience of the customer using these three channels will win the game. In terms of so there is no doubt that the markets will grow. What Sir said, what Rajesh ji said, that obviously there are many risks. I feel and I follow some of the people like Saurabh Mukherjee from Marcellus, and he says that for the last 100 years, whenever US has gone into recession, there is the 5 years of bull run which has happened in the Indian market. Broadly, you know, because of the oil prices going down and the cheap money coming into India. I personally, we have done an all-in sort of a poker bet on our businesses for the next 5 years. I don't see it to be a 2-3 years bull run. I see it to be a 5 to 7 years bull run for the Indian market. From a perspective that overall macro markets will grow. Of course, there will be certain challenges which any organization or any geography will face. It might be COVID coming in again, maybe the war going on, Dubai mein fir kuch hoga, US might go into recession, there might be fear coming in. But the consumption story is definitely true. And if you want to see this, you should go to Meerut, you should go to the Mall of India today, or you should go to Lucknow's Hazratganj, and you'll see that the markets are booming, people are consuming, and that's what gives me confidence that hum अच्छे पौधे बेचेंगे and our category will grow and we will sort of make it big.
That was precisely my next question in the consumption story, the India consumption story that you mentioned. Because when we're talking about the success of the goal, when we are talking about hitting the 5 trillion economy, a part and parcel of this is the consumption story. So Rajesh ji, if you would like to dwell on some of the trends that you're seeing when it comes to the boom that Annu ji just mentioned that he's seeing in India's consumption story.
Sure, Arjun. Before that, I would just like to tell you there is no G in my name. My name is Rajesh. So please feel free to call me Rajesh. Okay. Consumption story, when we talk about, we have to look at it from 2 perspectives. One is the demand side and the other is supply side. From demand side, in the last 5 to 10 years, the retail industry in India has completely changed. The customers have become more brand conscious. They have become more brand aware. And there are three reasons to it. One is exposure through internet. Second is exposure through media. And third is their own travel overseas, where they see a lot of brands. And then they become more brand conscious, not only because they just want to flaunt the brand. That's also one part of it, honestly speaking. I can talk about this in this closed door, that yes, flaunting is also an important role, especially in Southeast Asia, including India. However, why they prefer brand is because I think, I'm sorry, I'm just digressing a little. I heard one speaker in the previous panel saying that brands are passé. I don't agree with him. I beg to differ there. The reason is brands offer a certain kind of promise. So if you look at a Lacoste store, or if you want to buy a Lacoste product, even before going online to buy a Lacoste product, or even before you enter a Lacoste store anywhere in the world, not only in the country, anywhere in the world, you already know what is to be expected. What kind of quality, what kind of merchandise, what kind of price points. This is the brand promise that brands bring. And that is where consumers are getting more affinity towards the brand. And they want that brand promise, that brand DNA to continue to work in the country. And what we see in the last 5 to 10 years, Indian consumers have become very, very brand conscious. Now, if I look at, this was the demand side, that why consumers are liking brands. Coupled with this, the disposable income of the customers is going up. What we see, there are 2-3 types of customers, if I put it in this bucket that I'm going to say now. One is that customer which is, let's say, 58 years or 60 years plus. Earlier, that consumer used to retire at this age. However, not anymore. The consumers want to continue to work beyond their retirement age or beyond their traditional retirement age also, because they want to maintain their lifestyle. And to maintain that lifestyle, they need to earn more, and hence they continue to work, and that adds a lot of new existing customer base to the retail brands also. The second set of customer is exactly in the beginning of their career, which we can say millennials or Gen Z customers. Those customers have different drivers to get attracted towards the brand or the products. We have to ensure that we understand their likings and dislikings also, and to ensure that we keep bringing that customer base also into our fold, because that customer base is a longer customer base. They will continue to remain with us for the next several years. And that customer base gets attracted not because of the pricing, not because of the other thing, but they get more attracted maybe because of social media, maybe because of their peers. So that is what we have to ensure that we address that part also. And the third customer base falls somewhere in between, which is, let's say, a 30 plus or 40 plus or 50 plus customers. That customer base is driving the growth as we speak today, because that customer base has already understood what brands are. That customer base is already having a lot of money to splurge. They are seeking happiness in their mind. And that happiness, as we all know, that retail therapy also works as a great happiness quotient. So they are also looking for that happiness quotient. So from the demand side, these 3 customer sets need to be taken care of, and all of them are today very happy to go out and start shopping. On the supply side, we have to ensure that the brand promise comes to the fore. Quality is extremely important for any product that we supply. The latest buzzword, which also touches a lot upon the consumption pattern, is sustainability. Across the world, sustainability is not only a marketing tactic anymore. You don't only communicate to the customer saying that we are sustainable brands, so come and buy from us. In my view, and I firmly believe that it's a responsibility of each and every brand to ensure that their products are sustainable or moving towards that sustainability. We at Lacoste, of course, have defined timelines to make it more sustainable, to bring down our carbon footprints in a defined timeline manner across the world. So this is an extremely important part. Second important part from supply side is your channel of distribution. As I said, before 2014, most of the retailers in India had physical shops. But today, that physical shop is not sufficient. You have to have multi-channel. And multi-channel, when I say, it should be online, it should be offline, it should be travel retail, it should be city retail, it could be MBO, it could be EBO, all kind of channels. Wherever your TG is there, you have to be present there. So these are extremely important factors which can drive the customer story in the country.
Right. Thank you so much, Rajesh. Mr. Grover, of course, he mentioned the demand side and the supply side factors, but in an important aspect that he mentioned about sustainability, I'm sure you could dwell more on that in your answer, and the consumption story, of course, if you would like to add something to it.
Again, we are a bunch of 1,300 million people in India. Unfortunately, for the last 50, 70 years, we've been a poor nation. Our GDP is one of the lowest across from a per capita perspective. But if you look at how China, with a similar number of people, their GDP sort of per capita went up in the last 30 years. I foresee the same happening in India in the next 30 years for us. From 2020 to 2050, we will see the GDP per capita going up, which means जो आज आपके यहाँ ड्राइवर है 20,000 रुपए कमा रहा है वो 50,000 रुपए कमा रहा होगा in another 15-20 years, and there is more organized labor which will come into the new mainstream economy, which means people will have more disposable incomes. Obviously, rich will become richer, middle class will become upper middle class, and lower class will obviously keep getting up. वो जो 200-300 million people हैं, which I think the whole world, or at least every Indian company sort of looks at, this base will go from 200-300 million to 800-900 million people from their TG sort of perspective, and that's where the consumption story will sort of keep building up. It has happened in US in 60s, in Japan in 80s, in China in early 2000. There is no denying that it will not happen in India from now on, because every macro, micro environment is pushing it towards the same thing. The talent, our age, the government readiness into it, with UPI, demonetization. Obviously, it was hard for the retailers, but somehow it has built, right? I've been talking to so many people. There is no way you can cheat the system now. And in the next 5 years, there is no way the unorganized guy who had this arbitrage of tax working in, they will definitely die down. So which means that from example perspective, the consumption story will go up, and brands like Relaxo, जो 100 रुपए का चप्पल बनाते हैं, पहले वो सिर्फ मेट्रोस में बेचते थे, they will be in every nook and corner of India and will destroy the local players, because they will not be able to compete with this brand because of sheer economies of scale, the strong tech they're trying to build, the integration of their supply chains, and it will help them become a massive giants. Again, similar story happened in the US, 60s, 70s, ketchups for that matter, unorganized players there, and then Heinz came up and they become the world's biggest. And there are multiple stories around it. I foresee that India consumption story will have brands there. Obviously, there is no brand loyalty as a term coming up, so there might be people who will shift from one brand to other, but brands will become powerful in the next 15-20 years, which means that the consumption story will majorly be defined by these brands who are able to sort of innovate, is able to sort of make their supply chains better, integrate their distributions and tech together to make a use case for their end customers. And there are many examples happening in the startup world, in the organized retail, in traditional brands like for that matter, Relaxo for that matter, right? They're still on Amazon. You go and they still sell the chappals at 100 rupees, and they're the best sellers, right? You go to Kanpur, say Unnao ki taraf, in northern UP, and you still see Relaxo now taking the front seat in that chota sa store. Because the roads are unified, the infrastructure is getting better, the UPI is coming in, people have that disposable income, and that's what the story will be for the future. In terms of your thing on sustainability, which Rajesh also said, that there is no denying that customers are getting conscious, and they will appreciate brands who also appreciate nature, for that matter. We obviously work in this domain a lot. We sell plants. We are into a gardening category. We're trying to organize this 26,000 crore unorganized gardening category in India, which for donkey years has been sold by the local nurseries and malis. And we foresee that nature will play a very important role. I think now nobody has to talk about it. COVID has told everybody how important nature and sustainability is for humans. And more brands, I think there's no brand I know of or I wear or I've heard of who has not talked about the goals on how they become sustainable, maybe in 2025, 2030. They have timelines where they are clear that they have to be sustainable, and if they are not, probably they will miss the bus and they will not be part of the ecosystem, and competition will sort of take over from there.
Right. Thank you so much.
In fact, sorry, I would just like to interject here. It's not only sustainability. I think the term today is ESG. So lot of emphasis is also being given on governance.
Right.
In a country like India, where social compliance is not considered that important or was not considered that important, but now I think it's gaining a lot of grounds. For example, if any person who supplies to, who wants to supply to Lacoste system, anywhere in the world, not only in India, they have to undergo 3 audits. One is social compliance audit. That means they have to ensure that all the laws of the respective countries are complied with to the T. Right. Second is if they have to undergo a technical audit where one sees the technicality about this thing, the environment friendly things. And the third, if that supplier is using a wet process, then they have to undergo an environment audit also. So the point here is not only sustainability. The brands across the world, including India, are becoming very, very conscious and very cautious about ESG compliance.
And just to add on another thing, I think also about the gender parity, I think, which is also one of the things which is happening for us, for that matter, in our farm, in our back end, which is a 28-acre campus, there are no males around. It's 100% managed by females, right from a supervisor to a plant doctor at the base. These more than 100 plus women sort of drive our back-end supply chain. And I think I'm proud and happy that to say that for us, bringing women participation and making them a part of the organized labor or organized workforce is something which is also a new India has to do and will also become an important element, just like sustainability and social proof.
Right. Rajesh, since you mentioned the governance aspect, I want to understand that from the policy and regulatory viewpoint, what would be the key imperatives for the industry to succeed? What would be, let's say, we have the budget coming up, what would be some of the key demands, or as in your general expectations that would give more, the fillip to the industry?
So I would talk more from the perspective of a retailer rather than a businessman on this particular aspect. I think as retailers, we see that there are serious issues when we enter into agreements with offline developers or now online guys also. For some reason or the other, the terms are getting stricter by the day by them, and they are mostly one-sided. What I do propose, if there is any possibility, and we are raising it through different forums to the government, if there is a possibility of regulating those developers and online channel in such a manner that it should be a win-win situation. I'm not saying that leave anybody free completely, but there should be a win-win situation. There should be a level playing field where both the parties win the game instead of it becoming a one-sided affair. Second, of course, lot of things have been done on regulatory ground, which have eased the business to some extent in the country. However, there are still some laws where some government officials would still come to the retail shops and they would sort of ask for a lot of things, which I think is getting addressed to a great extent, but we still need to walk some miles there, I would say.
Right. Mr. Grover, your views on this?
Uh, I have a long list, but having said that, I think I don't expect much from the government. Frankly, I want them to be out of business. They should not interfere us. Let us do our job. What they should do is to create an ecosystem, which I think they've somehow doing well. How I have seen my entrepreneurial journey for the last decade, I have seen a lot of infrastructure coming in. When I go to Lucknow and I see new roads, or I'm in Noida, I see how the infrastructure has come up. How UPI today has sort of played. I think we're the world's biggest in terms of digital transactions. I'm sort of happy with these. Having said that, if we start inviting them, as Rajesh said, in terms of contracts or in terms of interfering into sort of partnerships, I feel they will screw it up. It's better that we as market forces sort of figure this out and who wins. For example, for us working with Amazon is like it's always a troubling story. We never make money there, and still we can't live without them. And we keep figuring it out how we move out, and somehow I think that forces us to focus on more on D2C and other channels, right? And or to be more smarter enough to figure out what are the things, how to read the data more, how to comply with the Amazon system more. So from my viewpoint, I think I will expect them to keep doing the same things. In our industry, you said, please bring taxes. We are not monitored. There is a zero GST in our industry, and I want them to have GST so that there's more organized players who comes in, and हमारा input credit सारा खराब होता है. So I am not able to sort of take any GST credits. So if there is 2 or 5% slab for agri or agri-related businesses, we will. I think this is one thing which is in their control. We'll want to have them. I know, so that's what I know will never happen. Agri is something that they never want to sort of touch. So I'm saying, हम agri के subset हैं, आप उसको touch कर लो, which is horticulture. Don't touch agri. But yeah.
Right. So, panelists, I think we have 2.5 minutes left. And Mr. Grover, one of the things that was coming out from your answers from the beginning, of course, the mention of UPI, and UPI has become such a synonym of a success story. Now, I interviewed Mr. T. Koshi back in June when ONDC was about to kick off, and you shared your experience with Amazon. Very quickly, how do you think ONDC, will help in democratizing the retail sector?
I have read about it. I have heard Koshi sir abhi recently. I'm still confused. I don't know. Will government be able to pull up ONDC the way they pulled up UPI? But if they did, and if they do, I think it will definitely democratize the online from a commerce perspective. And if they are able to sort of patch up all the stakeholders and all the parts of the ecosystem, right, from payments to supply to demand, which I have very unlikely sort of probability as per me. But if they, I think, be able to do, of course, there'll be no Amazon or Flipkart's monopoly in the world. Just like today, UPI is the monopoly and not Paytm and Bharat Pay or Phone Pay. Right? You pay via UPI, you don't pay via Paytm. And that's what, if starts happening, people will start buying through those networks. But still, it's too early, I think, for us to say that it will be successful. I still have a lot of doubts. I wanted to ask a lot of questions from sir. But yeah, I think if it works, I think it will be a game changer for the world. I mean, especially for India.
Okay. Rajesh, you're reading quickly on this.
See, ONDC, as Annu rightly put it, that it's in a very nascent stages right now. We need to understand. In fact, I met Mr. Koshi last month in Mumbai, and then he explained me the brief outline, and I could understand a little out of it. Again today, he invited me to join their conference that they hold every Tuesday. So that is where he said they would be able to explain it better. I completely agree with the thought that yes, if it gets implemented in the right manner, it will democratize retail space and the online space in a big way. but it will take some time because it's a new concept. Unlike UPI, here people's personal lives will get impacted from the perspective of real products. So first of all, people need to be educated about the concept itself, especially the supply side, because as per my understanding, what Mr. Koshi told me is that as a buyer, you don't feel anything. You go to any of the platforms and you will be listed there anyway. But from the supplier side, we do not know how it will happen, like whether the agreements that we will have will be with the ONDC or it will be with the respective platform. Similarly, one big issue in a market like India, and not only limited to India, but in a market like India, is the big problem for brands like us is the fake. Lot of counterfeit gets populated on online, and if ONDC is democratizing it in such a manner that they don't put the checks and balances to ensure that those counterfeits or unauthorized products stay out of their system, it will actually become counterproductive for a brand like us. Similarly, when we enter into direct agreements and direct contracts with these online marketplaces, we are able to convince them to not discount our products. They can do it legally, but they also understand that it's a premium product and that cannot be discounted. Otherwise, the brand value will get diluted, etc., etc. We also are able to negotiate that we should have a separate brand store on those third-party marketplaces, whether it's an Amazon or a Collective or a Tata Click or a Jio, etc. How will those things be addressed for brand like us, for a premium brand? However, having said that, as I said, it may not necessarily be so relevant or so fast for brand like us. However, for other retailers, it could actually prove to be a game changer where they can quickly get onto the online platforms without waiting for a very, very long procedure with those brands.
Right. Thank you so much, panelists, for your time this afternoon. That's all the time that we had. Time just flies when we're talking about the resilience story of India and the success story. And we surely, your insights, your commentary as to what the retail sector's contribution will be towards this goal of 5 trillion economy. Thank you so much, panelists, ladies and gentlemen.